Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and on behalf of the Prairie Press, Pierman Pharmacy, the Paris Clinic Pharmacy, J&B Pallets, and the Old Glass Shop, I would like to welcome you to the Paris Center of Fine Arts on the campus of Paris Cooperative High School for tonight's Meet the Candidate debate. My name is Jesse Lusader, and I'll be serving as your moderator this evening. Before we begin, I would like to briefly outline tonight's event. This outline is also available in the brochure you received upon entering the building. Tonight's debate is scheduled to take place in two separate segments, during which 15 questions will be presented. In the first half of the event, our candidates will be asked a series of questions based on earlier submissions from Prairie Press readers. During the second portion of the evening, the candidates will be asked a series of questions submitted by those of you in attendance. Inside your brochure, you will find a QR code that may be scanned to submit questions throughout the first portion of the evening. You will also find a page where questions can be handwritten and dropped into the white boxes near both entrances to the auditorium. All submissions will be monitored and reviewed by event staff. Please understand that due to time constraints, not every question submitted will be asked this evening. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes to respond to each question. That time will be monitored and displayed to the candidates. The order in which candidates respond has been predetermined and agreed upon by the candidates to ensure each has an equal opportunity to respond first, second, and last throughout the evening. At the conclusion of this debate, each candidate will be given 5 minutes to deliver a closing statement. And with that, let's meet the candidates. First, we begin with the lifelong Edgar County resident, small business owner, and law enforcement officer. He is the president and CEO of Cochran Design Group, which he founded in 1985, and serves as a part-time police officer with the Village of Kansas Police Department, where he is in his 11th year of service. Beginning his law enforcement career as an auxiliary deputy with the Edgar County Sheriff's Office, he has since completed extensive training in areas such as crisis intervention, de-escalation, leadership, emergency medical response, and active shooter preparedness. He is also a certified human trafficking awareness trainer and opioid overdose response instructor who has helped secure nearly $3 million in grant funding benefiting Kansas, Illinois. Active in the community for decades, he has served as president of the Paris Chamber of Commerce and Paris Rotary Club, a Paris City Councilman and Commissioner of Public Health and Safety, and a member of numerous local boards and committees, who says he is running for sheriff to strengthen public safety, encourage community involvement, and ensure responsible, transparent use of taxpayer dollars. Ladies and gentlemen, Republican candidate Doug Cochran. Next, we have another lifelong Edgar County resident and veteran law enforcement officer with nearly 25 years of experience serving communities across the county. He currently serves as a day shift patrol sergeant and field training officer with the Edgar County Sheriff's Office and has previously served as chief deputy under Sheriff Jeff Wood. He began his law enforcement career in 2001 and has worked with multiple local police departments, including the Edgar County Sheriff's Office, Paris City Police Department, along with the police departments of Chrisman, Kansas, Hume, and Ridge Farm. In addition to his law enforcement background, he brings supervisory and safety leadership experience from his time working as an underground coal miner. He has also served in emergency medical and fire services, earning certification as an emergency medical technician and volunteering with local ambulance and fire departments. Active in public service beyond law enforcement, he serves as an elected trustee for the Brulitz Creek Township Board. He says he is running for sheriff to lead and strengthen the Edgar County Sheriff's Office, modernize operations, and ensure a professional, well-trained, and community-focused agency dedicated to protecting and serving the residents of Edgar County. Ladies and gentlemen, Republican candidate Matt Smith. Lastly, I introduce a lifelong resident of Edgar County and career law enforcement officer with more than 28 years of service. Beginning his career with the Paris City Police Department in 1990, he served in a wide range of roles, including patrolman, detective, sergeant, juvenile detective sergeant, drug officer, and search and rescue diver. He is also a certified law enforcement instructor who has provided training in firearms control tactics, building entry, and active shooter response. Deeply involved in the community, He has helped establish the Shop with a Cop program and served for 10 years as a school resource officer with Paris District 95, building lasting relationships with students and families throughout the county. He has proudly used his grant writing skills to support the city of Paris and has been thoroughly trained in human trafficking by the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board. He says he is running for sheriff to strengthen public safety, promote transparency and accountability, and lead a professional, community-focused sheriff's office dedicated to serving and protecting the citizens of Edgar County. Ladies and gentlemen, Republican candidate Rich Wilson. Now that you gentlemen have had a chance to get situated, we're going to go and begin with question number 1, which will be directed to Doug. What do you consider the most pressing public safety issue facing Edgar County, and how would you address it if elected as sheriff?
As I walk door to door, talking to the residents of Edgar County, one reoccurring theme continues: drugs, drug trafficking, and drug awareness in our community. Annually, I go to Southern Alabama and I ride with their Special Operations and Drug Interdiction Team, which is a team that goes out, has the knowledge to know when drugs are being transported through and how to find those drugs. They've offered to come up, they've offered to train our people and help us take care of that issue in Edgar County. I believe that is one of the largest concerns that the residents currently have, is the drug issues in our community. Thank you. I yield back.
Matt, your response?
I believe that one of the most pressing issues facing Edgar County, like many other communities, is a substance abuse problem. The substance abuse issues lead to many other issues that we see. They go hand in hand with theft, domestic violence, other issues like that in our community. I think that one of the best ways that we can combat that as a department is to commit somebody to addressing that issue. If I'm elected sheriff, I intend to commit a detective solely to drug work on drug cases for the county. I also feel that it's important to establish a good working relationship with the state's attorney's office and the judges of the courthouse, also to make sure that we're all on the same page and working together towards one common goal of holding these people accountable. I yield back my time.
Rich, we go to you.
I also agree. Drugs are our number one problem. Drugs cause most of the other problems, property crimes, all the crimes that we deal with. Most generally when you work a midnight shift in Edgar County or in the city of Paris, substance abuse and alcohol abuse are the things that drive the crimes that we deal with. I too will be part of, and I really don't know why we don't still have it. When I was at the City of Paris Police Department, I was one of the drug interdiction team. I worked on our Edgar County Drug Task Force, and for 2 years I worked directly with the DEA. With the County Drug Task Force, we had an overreaching agreement with City, Kansas, Chrisman. I mean, I've been called out of bed in the middle of the night to go talk to an informant in Chrisman and get a warrant. Currently, as it stands, we're not doing that shared practice, and we have to get back to that. And that's a day one thing. That's a quick signature on a piece of paper to unite all departments. And again, that's the way it used to be. I'm not sure why it's not that way now. When I worked with the DEA, we had drug pipelines coming in from Kansas City, Missouri. We had a gentleman here in Paris that was bringing in 1 kilo a week. He had 5 girlfriends who he bought all 5 of them cars. The reason he bought each one of them a car is because that way we wouldn't know which car he was taking to Kansas City to bring 1 kilo back. We had to develop confidential informants that were good enough and close enough to be able to give us the information on which vehicle was leaving that night to go get that kilo, so that we were able to prep the team working on this project and so that when he got to the cartel house in Kansas City, Missouri, they were prepared for him, so we had pictures at both ends. We knew the vehicle at both ends. The beautiful thing about working with the federal government, they do 85% of their time. Now, as long as we have the governor that we currently have, and or until we repeal the Safety Act, we can't lock these guys up and hold them. And it's not our fault. But if you work with the federal government, when we lock them up, for instance, 2 of these guys got 25 years. And the only way they got 25 years is they had to give up their entire people, everybody they worked with. If they didn't give up everybody they worked with, they got 45 years. And that's a non-negotiable sentence, and they do 45% or 85% of that. Thank you.
Gentlemen, before we advance to the next question, I'm going to take just a second to address a minor technical issue with our timer. Apologies for the delay. For question number 2, this one will be directed first to Matt. The Edgar County Sheriff's Office is comprised of 4 essential divisions. Among them are law enforcement, corrections, civil process, and telecommunications. Based on your experience, what knowledgeable and insightful leadership will you bring to each division in addition to the other administrative responsibilities required by the position of sheriff?
I feel that I'm in a unique position, as I've worked in administration already with the Edgar County Sheriff's Office and have worked closely with the employees in all 4 divisions under the Sheriff's Office supervision. I worked very closely every day with the road deputies. I worked very closely every day with our corrections officers and our telecommunicators. Also took a large interest in the courthouse security and worked closely with those gentlemen as well. I feel that courthouse security is a area that needs more attention, more personnel. That's something that I'm going to make a priority if elected sheriff. So just the daily interactions and being present, being involved, being available to the employees, being a knowledgeable resource is what I will bring to the table for all 4 divisions with the Sheriff's Office. I yield back my time.
Thank you. Rich, the question goes to you.
I was a sergeant at the police department for 9 years, and I got to work with some great people, Matt included. He worked with me as I was a sergeant, he was under me. Law enforcement, you have to gain respect, different than most jobs that you'll find. It's not just a knowledge, and it's not something that can come just through training. You've got to be the first guy through the door. That's how you gain respect in law enforcement. You take it on the chin. You are right there with the people. I have a great knowledge of working with the officers themselves. Telecommunicators, we've had telecommunicators at the police department long term. Now, there is a person over the telecommunicators to prevent us as sheriff from having to have a absolute hands-on approach to the telecommunicators. But I have a pretty good working knowledge of the telecommunicators. When it comes to the jail, that's totally new to me. So the person that is in charge of the jail administrator, has to be strong where I'm weak. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to study and gain information, because you have to. There's oftentimes you got to worry about lawsuits coming from the jail side of things. So I will be studying to learn that job, but I can't tell you today that I have experience there, because I don't. The people that I put in place, which are the people that are there now, but they have to be strong in the areas that I'm weak. The courthouse security wasn't there when I was working. It's something that's came up since I retired. I have had a chance to talk to those guys quite a bit, and one thing that they would like to be is actually deputized, and provided they have the right skill set and they're carrying guns, so I assume they do, they will be deputized so that in the event we have a bad situation, we can put them in the rotation and run with them. Thank you.
Doug, your response?
Thank you. Each of those skill sets that you just spoke about have their own sets of rules, regulations, and requirements and training. As a leader of the agency, you need to make sure that each one of those sets of skill sets meets the state-required mandates and state-required training. I have read the Department of Correction jail standards from cover to cover. I understand those standards. Those standards currently are not being fully met at the jail as they are. As a leader of that agency and my business background with its financial ability, I believe I can lead that and get that back on track. The problem we have with the telecommunicators, they are employees of the Sheriff's Department, where by statute, 911 has a director. There is a disconnect between the director and the employees of the Sheriff's Department. We need to address that. I yield back my time.
Thank you, Doug. Next question will begin with Rich. Edgar County has a population of approximately 16,350 people. The Sheriff's Office currently has 1 chief deputy, 2 detectives, 6 full-time road deputies, and 4 part-time road deputies. What changes, if any, would you make as sheriff regarding personnel and their respective duties?
How much do you want your taxes to go up? Unfortunately, folks, we can't ever be taxed enough to have the amount of manpower that we need. We just have to thank God that we haven't needed more at any one time. The full-time manpower is more than likely going to stay at the 8-10 with a working sheriff. But that brings me to another point. It has to be a working sheriff because we are in a small community. Now again, this is one of the disconnects that we have from the city and the county and the cities on the outskirts not working together like they did when I was there. When I was working midnights, if a call came out in the county and there was only 1 deputy on and we were a full shift, I went with the deputy to the county. I rode with the deputy and was his backup out in the county. I'm sure Matt has done that also, and everybody that worked at the city of Paris in the midnight shift. If the deputies had to go someplace, one of us went with them. Manpower's always been a bad problem, but unless we want to raise taxes, and I do not, the full-time manpower is going to be what it is. And right now we're at around 8 and a chief deputy and a sheriff. That's where part-time deputies come in. You can have as many of them as you want. And we used to have several. I'm not sure the number that we have now, but I am absolutely happy to put on more part-time deputies so that in the event we have a bad situation occur, and they occur, folks. We live in a rural community, and we are pretty lucky to be where we're at. But there have been calls that we have worked that we didn't have enough manpower. The only thing you can do is stay on that radio and tell the telecommunicator to keep calling. Call Marshall, call Clark County, call Danville. You got to keep them coming. We'll talk about some events that have occurred here in Edgar County that most people probably have forgotten or maybe don't know later on tonight. But part-timers are the way I would solve that problem. I'd put more part-timers on and I'd have them at every beck and call. And I've reviewed the union contract, and it is acceptable to do that. Thank you.
Doug, your response?
Please repeat the question.
Of course. Edgar County has a population of approximately 16,350 people. The sheriff's office currently has 1 chief deputy, 2 detectives, 6 full-time road deputies, and 4 part-time road deputies. What changes, if any, would you make as sheriff regarding personnel and their respective duties?
Once sworn into office, myself and my chief deputy will sit down with each employee and evaluate their tasks and to determine whether increased staffing is important. I, too, have the mind of controlling taxes. That being said, there are line items within the current budget, which is currently $2.4 million for the fiscal year 2026. At the Village of Kansas, I wrote a grant from the Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board for recruitment and retention. We were able to get an additional full-time officer paid for by the state of Illinois. That can be looked at. The problem with part-time officers, which I agree, Village of Kansas was basically run by part-time officers, but they don't work for free. That is an additional cost. As an administrator, as a businessman, somebody with a financial background that I have, I believe I can work with the county board, work with the taxpayers, and be able to develop additional staffing at a reduced cost and be able to keep the taxpayers in mind. I yield back my time.
Matt, your response.
So, as a full-time deputy with the sheriff's office, I live this every day. We have been perpetually plagued by low staffing. Edgar County is 625 square miles, and the majority of the time we are protected by 2 deputies on. So I have an intimate understanding of this issue. This is why it's going to be very important. It's going to be vital that the sheriff and the chief deputy are both experienced officers. They have to be willing to pitch in and help out, help cover the road, help respond to calls, work accidents, work domestic disputes. They have to be a leader within the department. The position of sheriff and chief deputy is far from an administrative position only. I would really like to see staffing increased, but it's something that's going to have to be whittled away at. I would love ultimately to see 2 deputies, detective, chief deputy, and sheriff on duty during the days. I would love to eventually see 3 deputies on each night shift, but that's something that's going to take time, it's going to take work, it's going to take prioritizing line items in the budget, seeing where money can be repurposed to pay salaries. Grants are great, but grants don't serve long-term or solve long-term problems. I yield back my time.
Question number 4 will begin with you again, Doug.
Sure.
Over the years, the Edgar County Jail has been subject to various lawsuits and sanctions resulting from its conditions within, largely imposed by the Illinois Department of Corrections. With a new facility under construction and set to be operational in the early to mid-spring, what will be your plan to ensure a constant state of proper functionality and inspection readiness if elected?
Thank you for the question. With my background, my construction background, my project management background, as far as the facility goes, I'm probably the most qualified individual up here to actually oversee the structure itself. As for the jail being closed for a short period of time, it was not only for the condition, but lack of training. Training is very important to me, and all my staff will be trained and meet all mandates, so that will be taken off the table. So with the new facility, in my construction background, I assure you that building will be kept in a tip-top shape and not a burden to the taxpayer. I yield back my time.
Matt, your response.
When I worked as a supervisor in the coal mine, I worked for a superintendent that brought us all into a supervisory meeting and set us down and told us that we are going to do things the right way every day. He said, I don't care if it costs production. We're not going to take shortcuts. We're going to do it the right way every day. We'll always be inspection ready. And that is a mindset that I have carried forward with me. And I would take that same approach with the jail, with the facility. Every day that I walk through there, I'm going to be inspecting it. I'm going to be looking to make sure that things are done the right way. Make sure that it is inspection ready. If our employees are accustomed to operating that way, it's not a big deal when an inspector walks through the door. It's not a big deal when the insurance inspector walks through the door. So while I don't expect perfection from everybody, I do expect excellence, and we will run an excellent facility. I yield back my time.
Rich, your response.
I grew up on a farm, and the family farm, as there's several family farm men and women out here today. We fix things that are broke. Currently, I'm a maintenance man at the Tiger Senior Apartments, and although the building, the old high school building, is old, the structure itself's in pretty good shape. But being new, I can tell you, we're going to have issues arise. New buildings got just as many problems. They're different problems, and unfortunately, they're more expensive problems. We have to have somebody that stays up on that. They do employ maintenance men, and the checklist that they will have, you have to have every day. There's things that they have to see. There's things that they have to do on a daily basis. I've been in contact with a contact at the federal government, at the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Now, the Federal Bureau of Prisons won't discuss in depth things that we can do with a sheriff's candidate. They want you to be the sheriff. But I can tell you there are ways that we can utilize the Federal Department of Prisons, and we are uniquely set in a position where we are directly between the federal prison in Terre Haute and 5 federal courthouses. We've got an airport that will take the planes that the Federal Bureau of Prisons use, and because of the new jail, we're going to have, for lack of a better word, paddy wagon. So we can transport people from the airport to our courthouse or to our brand new jail. Now, part of the reason that this is even an option is because it's a brand new jail. I don't think they would have even considered the old jail. But folks, going back to our governor, because of the Safety Act that we have in the state of Illinois, we're never going to fill a 60-plus bed facility. We have to figure out a way to make this pay for itself, or at least pay part of the bills for itself. And the Illinois state, who used to also do this, isn't going to help because they're letting people out just as fast as they go in. One of the concerns that we had when the Paris Work Camp came in was that families would move to Edgar County. That's not the concern with using the Federal Bureau of Prisons, because they're short time in our facility, basically just going to court and then shuffled back to other prisons. So, thank you.
The next question begins with you, Matt. Most would agree that accountability and transparency are of the utmost importance for all law enforcement agencies, and especially the elected office of sheriff. In the instance of an allegation pertaining to misconduct, how would you plan to address such from both an investigative and administrative standpoint?
I think to begin with, it's important as the top administrator of the department is to figure out what level of problem are you dealing with here. Are you looking at a policy violation? Are you looking at a law that has been broken? It starts initially with the administration at the department, the sheriff and the chief deputy. From there, once you decide what the seriousness of the allegation is, if it's something that can be held internally, the administration, I will hold all of the employees to the highest standards. Everybody needs to be trained. Everybody needs to know the policies inside and out. And like I said before, I would expect excellence of all my employees. If it's something that's criminal, I would employ the assistance of an outside agency, be it the state police, the Paris Police Department, or whatever department might have jurisdiction over wherever the offense was committed. But I think, like I said, it's important to determine initially what the issue is. We can't just refer everything immediately to the state police and expect them to handle it. We have to be a hands-on administrator also. Now, yield back my time.
Rich, your response.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. Most would agree that accountability and transparency are of the utmost importance for all law enforcement agencies, and especially the elected office of sheriff. In the instance of an allegation pertaining to misconduct, how would you plan to address such from both an investigative and administrative standpoint?
Definitely outside departments. Information from law enforcement can't be given out to the public until we get to a certain point during an investigation. But allegations, and there's different degrees of allegations. If we just have a citizen's complaint, I may take that complaint and investigate it as far as I can. If I find that it's just a citizen's complaint, you have to understand, citizens, everybody that we deal with, or most everybody that we deal with in every event, at least 50% of the people that are there don't want us there. At least 50% of the people that are there are usually mad. A lot of complaints come in that can be taken care of simply by talking it through with the complainant when they have a clear head on another day. Now again, if it goes to the next level, if a legal complaint has come in, goes to a totally different department. You have to farm that out so that there is no chance that it can be viewed that you're trying to cover something up. Now, that has been done before with the city and the county, that they've had the different departments, Sheriff's Department had the city police department handle investigations and vice versa. If it becomes something that appears could be an arrestable offense, then I would go straight to the Illinois State Police, where an investigation will be done and you will either be cleared, vindicated, or the next step taken. Thank you.
Doug, your response.
I too would have to evaluate the severity of the allegation. I also believe that if it is a criminal investigation, by statute, we need to bring in a third-party agency to do the investigations. Any internal investigations gives the appearance to the public of a cover-up, and I will not stand for that. As a leader of the agency, I'm responsible for the agency and its employees within. So any allegations or any charges made to or about my employees will be taken very seriously and will be investigated to the full letter of the law. I yield back.
Rich, the next question will begin with you. If elected, how would you address budget management within the sheriff's office? Specifically, how would you ensure fiscal responsibility while prioritizing public safety? And what steps would you take to avoid overspending or relying on public safety tax funds inappropriately?
This is a great question. Our budget has blown up. I mean, with the creation of this new jail and the 1% safety tax, financially the jail, it's not that we're in great shape, but financially the jail is setting better. Unfortunately, we don't have manpower. With 8 deputies, you have to understand something about the Edgar County budget and the Sheriff's Department budget. The sheriff does his best to set the budget, but then the budget has to be approved by the county board. I've got all the budgets from Carl Farnham forward, And the beautiful thing about the Edgar County Sheriff's Department budget is Carl Farnham had a line item budget. His budget was line items of everything that we needed. Now, his budget was less than what the budget is now, but when Carl passed that budget to Tim, Tim tweaked a few of the line item things to fit his needs, and he maintained that line item budget. And Mr. Motley tweaked what Tim gave him and used that same line item budget. Jeff tweaked what Mr. Motley gave him and used that line item budget. Now, with that line item budget, you can go backwards. You can see where your surpluses were, and you can see where you ran out, and you can adjust year to year with that. We've only had a couple of years where we've had a crazy bad situation occur with our budget. 2014, and then during COVID, during Jeff's deal. And we made it through. Now, it took some crunching, but the city was going through the same crunch. We went from being able to patrol at will to, hey guys, gas went from $1.40 a gallon to $4 a gallon. Of this line item budget, there's about 80% that is locked in, cannot be manipulated by the sheriff. If it is manipulated by the sheriff, deputies won't get paid. Fuel won't get bought. So as a $2.4 million budget, the sheriff will actually be in control of between $400,000 and $600,000. And I made that comment at a Edgar County board meeting, and one of the board members said, I don't think you can be in control of even $400,000. So yes, it is an extremely large budget. But don't think that you have to have graduated from Yale to run it, because especially some of our farmers in here and some of the big business people in here, you can look at this budget and wish that you had the same budget where you're at.
Rich, that is the end of your time. Doug, your response.
Please repeat the question.
Of course. If elected, how would you address budget management within the sheriff's office? Specifically, how would you ensure fiscal responsibility while prioritizing public safety? And what steps would you take to avoid overspending or relying on public safety tax funds inappropriately?
Thank you. As a 40-year business owner, administrator, I've dealt with financial projects in excess of $30 million. So budgets are something that I deal with on an annual basis, if not more, on a monthly basis. The $2.4 million budget currently is the largest budget the Sheriff's Department has had. When Sheriff Farnham was there, his budget was $900,000. When Sheriff Motley was there, his budget was $1 million. Now we're at $2.4 million, and probably in the near future, your taxpayer dollars will be a $3 million budget if it's not managed correctly. There are many ways to control that budget, but you need to have a financial background to do so. One of the ways you can do is through grants and or dealing with federal surplus property. That alleviates the line items in the budget for that and can be used for personnel or other matters. So you do need to have a strong financial background and a management style when you're dealing with taxpayer money. Be aware, the sheriff is not only a $2.4 million budget. He'll be over a $20 million jail, its operating costs, and its maintenance, as well as the building and grounds of the courthouse. So annually, the sheriff will be dealing with probably close to $30 million of your taxpayer money. He better have a strong background. We're not dealing with your personal checkbook. We're dealing with your money, your taxpayer money. I yield back.
Matt, your response.
I took a real interest in our department's budget when I started serving as the union steward for our department. I went to the treasurer's office and asked them if I could get copies of our full Sheriff's Department budget, and they have been sending those to me for the last 4 or 5 years. I look at them monthly. When I look at our budget now, as the other gentleman stated, a $2.4 million budget, 76% of that, when I've done my figuring in the past, is payroll. Another 11% on top of that is filling vacancies. Employees are taking days off. So we're looking at an 87% of our budget at the department is for paying our employees. So we're looking at 13% of the budget left over for all of our other operating expenses. When we're looking at such a large portion of our budget being payroll, one of the strongest things that the sheriff can do is to try and control what you control within that. You can control overtime, and then for the other line items, we have to control any frivolous spending. On our revenue and expenditure report, there are 40 line items on that budget. And when I look at that, it gives a monthly breakdown, and I'm looking to see what the percentage increase is every month on each line item. So if I see anything on that budget that looks like there is more than an average of 8.3 increase every month, I need to be looking at that, analyzing, seeing what's going on in that area, and what can I do to make changes to correct that. I yield back my time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Question number 7 will begin with you, Doug. Mental health crises can result in complicated interactions between law enforcement and citizens. What specialized training will you provide to ensure officers are prepared to handle these situations effectively and compassionately, especially in these rural or under-resourced areas like Edgar County? And secondly, what, if anything, will you do to ensure your workforce is supported in their own mental health needs?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. Months ago, I have reached out to a pool of clergy around our county, and I asked if they would be willing to come in and serve the incarcerated as well as the jail staff. The other is, I have also dealt with the Human Resource Center and reached out to them, asking if they too would bring mental health awareness and support to the incarcerated as well as to the jail and patrol staff. They've agreed to do so. And then as a member of the Ross Committee and have connections in RU and the other addiction committee and awareness, they are willing to come in and give their counseling to the inmates and to jail and patrol staff. So I've already started that process, and we'll bring those agencies in on day 1. Thank you. I yield back my time.
Matt, your response.
I think anybody actively working in law enforcement or any of the other emergency services is going to agree that mental health crises are on the rise in our communities. One thing that I would focus on for our deputies is to have everybody participate in what they call CIT training, or critical incident team training. It specialized teaching for the officers to learn how to deal with mental health crises, work compassionately, and de-escalate situations to have a positive resolve. I believe that it's also important to have and develop a good working relationship with the multiple support groups within our community, and be able to provide resources to the people that we deal with. As far as the employees and mental health issues, it's very important to have a strong employee assistance program. People that work in emergency services, we see some pretty bad stuff. We see people on their worst days. We deal with bad accidents, domestic violence, injured children. All of that begins to take a toll on a person after a while. And I think that it's important to have the resources there to keep your employees healthy and happy and productive, and to have all of that in place so that when something happens, You're not scrambling looking for a resource. Everything is in place. It's a smooth service for your employees. I yield back my time.
Rich, your response.
I'd like to take just a moment of time, just a few seconds of silence for the young man that this question probably came out as. All emergency services have dealt with mental health for years. When I was working at the city, we had deals, we had signed agreements with HRC. I would assume we still have, and I know that we have used HRC in the past, whether through the city or the sheriff's department, to talk to inmates, to talk to people in our custody, even before they became inmates of the jail. And certainly, I've been involved in bad incidents where I've went and had to go through a debriefing with the HRC. Clergy is a phenomenal idea. Clergy have helped us through the years with death notifications, with an assortment of different things that we've had to do with regard to mental health. But it is a real problem. Before I retired, the state had mandated courses that every law enforcement agent in the state of Illinois had to take. It was a yearly thing. And I'm sure that we still have that standard because it hasn't gone away. If anything, it's got worse. Thank you.
Matt, this next question will begin with you. Aside from the training mandates set forth by the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board, what would you intend to do for the training and continued education of deputies and correctional officers, specifically as it pertains to key aspects like constitutional law understanding, use of force continuum review, general policing tactics, and/or review of certain case law and legal precedent?
So as the leader of the department, I want to foster an environment of learning. I think that it's important to invest in your employees, to invest in their training. The better trained your employees are, the more confident they are going to be, the safer they're going to be, the more reliable they're going to be. They're going to operate at a higher level than an untrained employee. I would implement a policy. I had actually written a policy prior to in our operations manual when I was serving as the chief deputy to insist on extra training for our employees, not just what is mandated by the state, but also to allow employees to do extra. The guys, there's a lot of times that they want to do extra training. It used to be that we couldn't get off of work to do training, or we couldn't take a day off of work to do training. They didn't want to pay for it. The departments, couldn't afford it. But, like I said, I definitely want to foster an environment where training is encouraged and the employees are allowed to participate in anything that they would like to do to better themselves. I yield back my time.
Rich, we go to you.
That was a long question. Could you please repeat it?
I can. Aside from the training mandates set forth by the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board, what would you intend to do for the training and continued education of deputies and correctional officers, specifically as it pertains to key aspects like constitutional law understanding, use of force continuum review, general policing tactics, and/or review of certain case law and legal precedent?
As a sergeant for the city of Paris, monthly we went through training. We had computer programs that we had specific training that we had to take each month, usually 3 or 4 different classes. You could do that during lull times when you were on duty, and therefore it didn't create more overtime. I'll look into making sure that we have that type of thing in the department. There is several trainings that we have to go to and have to maintain a level through the course of a year or every other year. But if you walked into the back room of the police department, we had the use of force continuum and the most important case law hanging on the bulletin board back in the office, so that every day, every officer that came into that place saw the use of force continuum, and every officer had a very good understanding of what that use of force continuum was. We would go through certain case law, not necessarily every month, but 2 or 3 times a year, and we studied the department standard operating procedure at least 3 times a year, and we had to sign off on it, and the chief of police kept that for records. Thank you.
Doug, your response.
Thank you. I've been accused of training too much, and I'll assure you right here and now there's no such thing. The more you train, the standard operating procedures in which you put in place reduces the tort or the lawsuits, whether it be criminal or civil, against the sheriff's department, and helps reduce the burden on the taxpayer. As a leader of that agency, I will ensure that every officer meets the state mandates set through the Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board. The corrections officers have their own set of training. They have PREA. They have a mental health requirement by a trained mental health provider on an annual basis. That needs to be done. When all these employees are trained to their highest standard, that will reduce the burden on you, the taxpayer, through any tort or any potential lawsuits. My agency will be well trained. I've already talked to trainers around the state that are willing to come to Edgar County and train, so we don't have to send our employees to the mobile training unit in Mattoon. I have spoken to the director of the mobile training unit, which I also sit on the advisory board for that, and they are willing to work with us on that as well. So yes, my agency will be very well trained, and that is the responsibility of the sheriff, and I assure you I will make that happen. I yield back.
Rich, the next question begins with you. With regard to your individual training, of the 17 total mandates to be fulfilled, all of which are on an annual, every 3-year, or 5-year cadence, including 12 hours worth of scenario-based training within a 3-year period, are you in satisfactory compliance with these requirements set forth by the Police Training and Standards Board? And secondly, what is your current certification status as a peace officer with the state of Illinois?
Great question. No, I'm not certified in almost anything now. My certification, because they are 1-year, 2-year, and 3-year certification, they've all run out, except for the one certification that I have to run here. And believe me, that's been questioned. Some members of the community didn't want me on the ballot and wanted to make sure that that was an answer before we got to this stage. The single certificate that you have to run for Edgar County Sheriff is given to you when you pass the test when you go through Police Training Institution. And when you pass that test and you receive that certificate, you have that certificate until you pass away or until you commit a felony. If you commit a felony and are charged and convicted, they strip you of that certificate. If you're charged and forced out of a department in lieu of being convicted, they strip you of that certificate. Death is the only other way you can lose that certificate. As for all of my other certificates, they've all expired. I retired 5 years ago, haven't had a need to take the tests to get those back into current condition. And I haven't talked to Jeff Wood about this yet, but if I make it through the primary, March 17th, I intend to ask him to put me on as a part-time deputy so that I can get my certificates back into current status. Thank you.
Doug, your response.
Yes, I'm in full compliance of the mandates and the Safety Act. That is something you don't want to let expire, because if you do, it takes hundreds of hours of additional training to get that certification back and active. So yes, I am an active, certified Illinois law enforcement officer. I yield back.
Matt, your response?
Yes, very easy answer here. I am a currently full-time certified law enforcement officer. My status with the state is active, and I am 100% up to date and compliant with all mandates with the state. I yield back.
Thank you, gentlemen. This brings us to the scheduled intermission of our debate this evening. For our members of the audience in attendance and those tuning in via live stream, the QR code referenced earlier will now be deactivated so that we can finalize the second series of questioning. Please plan on returning to your seats in 15 minutes where we will begin the second half of this evening's event. Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, now that we're resituated, we'll begin with the second half of this evening's event, starting with question number 10, and it will begin with you, Doug. In your own words, can you explain what the roles and responsibilities of a sheriff are?
The roles and responsibilities of a sheriff. I was going to touch upon this later, but there's no better time than this. The roles and responsibility of that sheriff is more than just law enforcement. And the reason I know that is I've spoken with Sheriff Nate Chaplin from Douglas County, Sheriff Kent Martin from Coles County, Sheriff Bill Brown from Clark County, and retired Sheriff Ed Motley from Edgar County, who have all told me during their tenure as sheriff, their responsibilities are 95% administrative. Now, that's not to say that they don't do patrol. That's not to say that they won't back up their deputies, as I will. But these gentlemen who have endorsed my campaign and are willing to assist me in getting Edgar County law enforcement up to speed, up to par, and proactive, I think as a leader of that agency, you need to be having a business background and a law enforcement background, all of which I have. I yield back.
Matt, your response.
I believe that the responsibility of the sheriff is to, number one, be the chief law enforcement officer of the county. He needs to be a leader within his organization and a resource for the employees that work within his department. I think that it's important for the sheriff to have practical experience and know how to do most, if not all, of the tasks within the department. As a sheriff, I would never ask any of my employees to do something that I didn't fully understand or was not capable or willing to do myself. Last of all, I think that it's important for the sheriff to be a teacher. I think that the sheriff needs to not only make sure that the employees know how to do everything, but also why we do what we do. I yield back.
Thank you, Matt. Rich, your response.
First and foremost, service. While knocking on doors, most common complaint that I've heard outside of drugs is we've lost our sense of service. We take offense reports over the phone instead of face-to-face. We do too many things over the phone instead of having that face-to-face contact. I believe a strong leader has to be a serving leader. Now, I agree with most of what was said from the first two guys. I don't agree that 95% of this is going to be administrative, because you have to delegate certain administrative options. You have a chief deputy that, if you choose properly, will take care of several of the administrative items with you. It comes down to protect and serve. Now, that service doesn't end with the public. That service doesn't end with your officers. But you have to have a servant's heart to be able to run this job. I've been on just about every kind of call that you can have. In fact, I hesitate to wager that nobody here could come up with a call that I haven't handled in my almost 3 decades in law enforcement here in Paris. And during that time, there's been many mild cases all the way up to shooting events. But it all starts with service. Thank you.
Matt, the next question will begin with you. Should Edgar County move toward a single centralized dispatch center for all emergency and non-emergency calls? If so, how would you make it happen, and who should be responsible for its management and budgetary oversight?
So when I served as the chief deputy of the department, I was actually involved in conversations about this very topic. And we have explored the idea in the past of combining all of our resources into one centralized dispatch center, and I believe that this is something that's going to become a reality in the future when we build our new facility. I feel that it's going to be a necessity. In a small community, we need to get the most value out of our limited resources, and I think that a combined dispatch center is a good way to do that. Once it comes down to creating this joint system, personally, I believe that what would make the most sense is for the 911 system to have the oversight of that dispatch center, but I am open to other conversations and exploring other ideas with the county board, with the 911 board, and with the 911 director to find a solution that works for everybody. Now yield back.
Rich, your response.
I received this exact question from the county board on one of the times that I attended their meeting, and I told them that I'd be all for it under the right set of circumstances. And in fact, from a payout standpoint, I can't believe we've not already done this. It's been close 2 or 3 times, but just couldn't get it all put together. We've had a task force before, and why it's not ongoing, I'm not sure. In talking to the city drug guys now, you know, they don't work together a whole lot with county guys, and that's crazy because that's always been our manpower. You know, where the deputies didn't have enough manpower, we filled in. Where we didn't have enough manpower, the deputies filled in. Or we called somebody in from Kansas, or we called somebody in from Crispin. Or we called in the part-time deputies. Drugs are always going to be the #1 issue. Meth and heroin are here, and they have been the biggest issue we've had for a long time, and they will continue to be the biggest issue that we've had for the foreseeable future. You can't stop it. You can slow it down, and you can take care of these people that are walking down our streets. There are ways that we can deal with these people. We've done it in the past. Law enforcement is able to hit places. When I was going door to door in Kansas 2 weeks ago, there's 2 drug houses over there, and they wanted to know what I was going to do about it. And I advised them that day 1 we'll have a signed paper, and whether it be the drug gentleman from Paris or county or wherever they come from, we will address it. Thank you.
Doug, we go to you.
I mentioned before that I sit on the Law Enforcement Advisory Board over in Mattoon. Well, before that advisory board meeting, there's always a regional drug task force meeting. I've already spoken for Edgar County to get on that regional drug task force so we can share resources, knowledge, and personnel to be able to address that in Edgar County. I also mentioned before that I go down annually and ride with the Drug Interdiction and Special Operations team in Southern Alabama. Now, they said if I'm elected, they're more than willing to come up and train personnel. And what are they looking for? It's not just the drugs in Edgar County, it's the drugs and money that goes through Edgar County. They have the knowledge and the training to help us figure out what's going through our county, how to find it, and how to stop it. I also talk to the people in the community, and we realize that the way the legal system is set up in Edgar County and across the state is sometimes these folks don't go to jail. Well, what you can do is you can make it hard enough on these folks to operate within Edgar County. Again, they'll leave Edgar County because we're making their job way too hard. And unfortunately, they'll go to surrounding counties around us. But I'm concerned about the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Edgar County, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep our county safe. I yield back.
Matt, your response.
Yeah, we did touch on this earlier, and like I said, it's no secret that substance abuse, drugs, is one of the biggest problems that our community faces. As I stated earlier, I would commit to having a detective that works drug crimes. I would also make sure to work with our state's attorney and our judges to ensure that these people, especially the people that reoffend, are held accountable. The Safety Act, anybody in law enforcement can tell you, the catch and release program, it's tied our hands. It's made our job more difficult. But there are provisions within that we can put these people who are reoffending back in jail and hold them accountable. And I would work to make sure that that is done. I yield back.
Thank you, Matt. Doug, we'll begin with you for question number 13. If the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Division, otherwise known as ICE, were to show up in our community with the purpose of performing enforcement operations, would you, and if so, on what level would you cooperate with their efforts?
Do you want the question answered for the governor, or do you want the question answered for the citizens? I believe the law enforcement in Edgar County has the duty and the right to help their brother law enforcement officers, whether they are state or federal. I realize that if I allow my deputies and my officers to work with ICE, it could bring a financial burden on the county because the governor does control some funds that go to the county board. But I'm willing to back up my brother officers and make sure that I keep them safe as well as the citizens of Edgar County safe. Yield back.
Matt, your response.
Unfortunately, law enforcement officers in the state of Illinois are prohibited by law from assisting federal agents in immigration enforcement. Now, that does not prevent us from responding to scenes where we need to help protect the officers while they are in the performance of their duties. So while we can't help with the enforcement of the immigration, I would absolutely support my officers, and I myself would be out there to protect the scenes so that we don't wind up seeing some of the tragedies that we've seen with the involvement of the ICE officers in the local news or the national news recently. Now you back.
Rich, your response.
I'm not taking this job to try to get arrested, especially not federally. But I can tell you that I believe that the United States Constitution tells us that we're going to support all law enforcement, and the ICE officers are law enforcement. Now, there's easy ways to skirt around. Did we help with somebody being taken out of a residence? And I would say maybe we didn't. It all depends on the paperwork that goes to the state attorney's office. We're not going to let, first of all, if I went to any deputy working today or any city police officer working today and said, you can't go with these guys, that is not going to go over, and it wouldn't have went over when I was in law enforcement before I retired. Yes, we will help. We may not be the ones inside the building, but there's a lot of things to do on the outside of the building. But we will never not assist state, federal, local law enforcement. Thank you.
Matt, the next question begins with you. There have long been public concerns about slow deputy response times on certain calls, especially in the most rural parts of Edgar County. If elected, how would you improve response times in these areas?
I myself have heard the concerns from the citizens about this on multiple occasions. And I will say, as an employee of the sheriff's office, one of the deputies is out there working every day. We have a large area to cover, and we have limited manpower. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this is another one of those issues that we can only increase the effectiveness of this or increase coverage with more employees. There is nothing that you can do to increase the response time of a deputy who was answering a call up in Quaker, up in the northeast corner of the county, and he turns around and has to respond to Kansas at the complete opposite end of the county. While it is frustrating, it's a reality. So I would work to, again, increase our staffing. Even one more person on a shift could make a big difference. So the only other option is to try and keep the deputies more centrally located in the county, but you never know how a shift is going to go and where your services are going to be requested. Now you go back.
Rich, your response.
Again, I hate to be a broken record, but I started my career in 1990, October 14th, 1990. And from day one, we had disagreement. Sheriff signed off on it, state's attorney signed off on it, county board, mayor, everybody signed off on it. It gave all of us the ability to work together. I can't tell you how many countless times there's been a deputy in the northern part of the county coming to do something in the southern part of the county, and the sheriff department call over and ask a city police officer to go hold the fort until the deputy got there. And I can't tell you how many times I went. I was that deputy. We are going to get back to face-to-face, and we are going to get back to working together. We have to, because manpower is not going to fix itself. I'm telling you, the only way to fix manpower is to raise taxes. And I'm not going to do that. But I will utilize the city's people, and they will allow me, I can assure you. I will utilize Kansas people, and they will allow me. And I will utilize Christmas people. We've done it before. It always worked. I'm not sure where the disconnect is right now and why it stopped, because it was still that way when I retired 5 years ago. But we will get back to a quicker response time. And no more phone call reports. Everybody deserves that face-to-face. Thank you.
Doug, your response.
Currently, the intergovernmental agreements with the Sheriff's Department, the Village of Kansas, and I'm sure the Village of Crispin, have not been updated for years. I've already started the conversation with county board members on working with them on modifying the sheriff's budget to be able to reach my goal of 3 deputies on per shift. That would be a command sergeant, a deputy in the eastern part of the county, and a deputy in the western part of the county. The command sergeant can go either way to back them up. Now, can I start that on day one? Absolutely not. But that is the goal that I'm going to work towards. Currently, the $2.4 million budget has a line item in it for overtime for road deputies of $100,000. It also has a line item in it for overtime for correction staff of $50,000. We can reduce those overtime budgets and be able to accommodate additional staff. So my leadership skills and my administrative background and my negotiating skills, I will work with the county board to further my goals to increase your protection. Thank you. Yield back.
Rich, our final question of the evening will start with you. There is a concern among some residents that county leadership can become complacent focused more on boosting and or collecting a pension and participating in what has been referred to as the good old boys club than actively serving the community? What specific actions have you taken that demonstrate that you will be engaged and accountable, present in the field, and committed to meaningful work?
Almost 3 decades of not doing it. I'm telling you, I've been here 3 decades, I've heard it, and it's been something that's been talked about. The Good Old Boy Club was here when I started, or was talked about when I started. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I can tell you, we're all grown adults. We all know the job. I've got a couple of guys here in the audience that worked on my shift, and I think they'll tell you that we did the job. And I think they'll also tell you the first thing I said when they came in on my shift, I'm not your babysitter. If you want me to be your babysitter, we won't get along. You know the job, do the job, and we'll get along. Thank you.
Doug, your response.
Please repeat the question. Okay.
One moment.
It's no problem.
The question was, there is a concern among some residents that county leadership can become complacent, focus more on boosting and or collecting a pension and participating in what has been referred to as the good old boys club than actively serving the community. What specific actions have you taken that demonstrate that you will be engaged and accountable, present in the field, and committed to meaningful work?
Well, I can assure you that I will be a full-time sheriff. I'm not there to collect a pension. I'm not there to take the insurance. I'm there to lead the agency in a forward, progressive way. I have created contacts around the state and around our nation to come in and assist Edgar County moving forward and to increase public safety. That is my goal. That is my focus. I'm not worried about the good old boy network. I'm worrying about enforcing the law and keeping the residents of Edgar County safe. I yield back.
Matt, your response.
I have the advantage that I've worked in administration in this department. As I said earlier, I served 2 years as the chief deputy, handled a great deal of the administrative tasks within the department. As an administrator, I was always present, I was active, and I was engaged. And my request to anybody here would be to ask any of the employees that worked with me when I served in that capacity what kind of a leader I was with the department. Now yield back.
Thank you. We have arrived at the point of the evening where each candidate will be allowed 5 minutes to provide a closing statement. And with that, we will begin in the same order which we began. Doug, you have the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate the Fine Arts Center offering the facility for us this evening. I want to thank the Prairie Press and its sponsors for hosting this. I want to thank the moderator and the candidates for being here. And most especially you, the public, whether you're here in person or you're watching the live stream. It is important that we understand that the Edgar County Sheriff is a leader. He's a negotiator. He is the head of the agency. And more importantly, he's in charge of finances, as I mentioned before, $2.4 million, over a $20 million facility with operating expenses and maintenance expenses, and the buildings and grounds of the courthouse, which total somewhere close to $30 million. You better have a strong financial background to be dealing with taxpayer money. I've always been involved in the community my entire life, whether it be working with Senator Woodyard, whether it be various service clubs, helping to establish the Edgar County Neighborhood Watch, being allowed by my chief, Chief Clow, to become a public information officer, to be certified in human trafficking awareness, one pill can kill, drug awareness, that I've been able to bring the DEA back to Edgar County. the Handle with Care project, where I was chosen out of all the law enforcement officers in the state of Illinois to represent that program between educators and law enforcement, to be able to help children who have been experiencing traumatic events, as well as the Alice Active Shooter training, where I go into the schools and educate educators as well as children on this horrific issue. I've always been involved in my community and will always be involved in my community. I was lucky enough and honored enough to serve on the Paris City Council as the Public Health and Safety Commissioner. I dealt with government budgets at that time, no different than what I would be dealing with this time as your sheriff. I mentioned it earlier, and I step out from behind this podium for just a second. I was lucky enough to get Sheriff Nate Chaplin, Sheriff Kent Martin, Sheriff Bill Brown from Clark County, and retired Sheriff Ed Motley, all who have endorsed me wholeheartedly and willing to assist me. I had Congresswoman Mary Miller, State Senator Chapin Rose, State Representative Adam Niemerg, Regional Superintendent of Schools Kyle Thompson, and many other individuals in Edgar County who have endorsed me and encouraged me to run for Edgar County Sheriff. Thursday evening, Edgar County was lucky enough to be able to have the gubernatorial candidate Darren Bailey and his Lieutenant Governor Aaron Delmar, both of which endorsed me that night as their candidate for Edgar County Sheriff and are willing to assist Edgar County in the growth and the protection. I want to thank you all very much for being here this evening. I would appreciate your vote on March 17th. I want you to drive safely, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Matt, your closing statement.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Prairie Press for hosting our event tonight. I'd like to thank Jesse for being the moderator and thank all the attendees for taking an interest in our election. I want to say that I'm not a politician. I'm not a grandstander. I consider myself to be a law enforcement professional and a leader within my department. This is my career. This is what I do every day. I have 25 years of active law enforcement experience. And as your elected sheriff, I want everybody to rest assured that running that department will be my primary focus. I won't have any other job. I won't have any side gigs. I will be there full-time and then some. I want everybody to understand that I'm coming into the position ready to lead on December 1st. And I ask for your vote on March 17th. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Rich, your closing statement.
I'm glad most of those guys don't vote in Edgar County. I have been here for around 3 decades. I've worked in Edgar County. I'm the only one of us up here that made a lifetime career out of this job. I'm going to tell you a couple cases that we worked on. One, we had 3 guys on duty, and it was serious, bad night. 3 guys going in different directions. I get to the call that I went on. The call was the guy had broke into the girlfriend's mom's house to kill her. When I get there, I catch him in her bedroom. Fight ensues, one-on-one. I've never been punched in the nose in a classroom. It's been heated and cooled. But that one-on-one fight was good enough that the mother called 911 while I was still there and said, "You better get somebody here because I'm not sure who's going to win this fight." Law enforcement goes through this type of thing on a daily basis. September of 1997. Normal day. Beautiful September day. I was fortunate to be working with the late Greg Metcalf, Mike Ennis, and then myself. First call come out, shots fired. Man in a car, shot at a pedestrian on the parking lot of the Bon Ton 2 restaurant. Shortly thereafter, shots fired at the water tower. Vehicle turned north on Main Street. Vehicle's now parked, shooting at random in the parking lot at the Werico gas station. It was a teenage young man intent on going into the Paris High School. Now this was before Columbine ever happened. We could have been in Paris if not by the grace of God. Fortunately, we were able to stop that young man before he made it into the high school. He had a list of the people that he was going to shoot, and he had magazines duct taped together to where he could drop one magazine out and put the next magazine in. And again, it was by the grace of God that we were able to take him down there without another shot being fired. Now, things like this happen in our community. We have bad actors in our community. I am trained to train trainers in our community in active shooter response. In fact, I've trained both of these guys at one point in time. Law enforcement is not a joke, folks. And just like many other jobs, you can take all the training in the world you want to take. But the real training comes when you get out of that squad car and you got to fight that guy on the side of the road, or you got to fight that guy in the girl's bedroom, or you got to face the guy that's got the gun. I hesitate to believe that none of you could come up with a call that I couldn't relate to that I've been on. And I can tell you with law enforcement, oftentimes, the crazier it sounds, the more likely to be a lie. That's what happened with us. I want to take you on a little journey right now for just a second, and then I'm going to end. And I would like at the end to give these folks a good round of applause because they've set up a really nice event for us today. And unfortunately, with the Bears playing and the Packers playing, we didn't get a full house. But sit back for just a moment and go on a little ride with me. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You're sound asleep in bed. Your loved one's beside you, down the hall, in their separate rooms. Glass breaks. Clip clop, clip clop, clip clop. Somebody's in the kitchen.
20 seconds.
When you call 911, you may have one deputy respond or one sheriff candidate respond. Do you want that to be a dedicated, lifelong person committed to the service or a businessman? We can hire people to write grants.
Rich, your time has expired.
Okay. Thank you. Applause, please, for the nice people.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude this evening's debate. Please give these candidates one more round of applause for their participation tonight. As a reminder, the general primary election will take place on Tuesday, March 17th, where you are all encouraged to make it out to the ballot box and cast your votes. On behalf of the Prairie Press, Pierman Pharmacy, the Paris Clinic Pharmacy, J&B Pallets, and the Old Glass Shop, I'd like to thank you all for attending tonight's event and wish you a safe drive.